Good evening, and we are now streaming live on Facebook. This is Monday Live, but it's not really Monday Live as much as it is the second part of our life building series, life building live series. And it's an honor to have today our special speaker, Karen Holford. Karen, good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. It's great to be with you again, Julian and Kaya.
Kaya, yes. Kaya, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling
we have an interesting topic.
It will be a good one. Hopefully very useful to many people.
How teens tick. I love your titles, Karen. I think that I don't know, maybe it comes naturally to you when you find the titles, very catchy titles all the time. How did you come up with this one?
Well, I guess it's just it's a word we use where I come from to how do you think, how do you tick? And then, so I said to someone, I'm going to call it How Teens Tick. And they said, yeah, I know, like a time bomb. So I thought, oh, well, I'll go with that one then. I'll keep it. The teens tick like a time bomb, but maybe not all of them. And so we'll see. We'll see if that's true or not.
You know, today I'm not just kind of like the co-host here with Kaya, but you know, I'm a father of a 5-year-old, right? Far away from the teens, but my daughter has already told me, and my wife and Trixie, guys, I need some space from both of you. So,
well, I think it's the best time to start parenting teens as soon as they're born, actually, because the way that you set the foundation when they're young really helps when they're older.
All right.
So get started now. The more you know about teens now, the better it will be when you get there.
Well, we look forward to the webinar and to you sharing with us. But we do have some ice-breaking questions. Kaya, what are we asking? We want to welcome, of course, everyone online on Facebook Live, but also people that are not necessarily on social media, but they are following us live through our church, our award-winning website, ringwaychurch.org.uk. Kaya, go for it.
So tonight we will be asking some questions of the viewers today, but we also hope they will also ask many questions that they're struggling with, or would just like to get assurance that they're doing the right thing. So we really encourage you to send in your questions as well. I'll just put up some ice-breaking questions in the beginning, and you can reply to them whenever. But some of them are like, what word would you use to describe teenagers? And what if you were a teenager again? What would you want to do differently? And how would you parent if you were the teenager? And questions like that, just to get you thinking on the topic tonight.
Excellent, thanks. Well, you know, we're ready. I know there's a lot of interest and we want to greet everyone that is following us, whether it's from the UK or from continental Europe or anywhere in the world. This is the blessing of social media. We want to welcome everybody, and we welcome your questions and comments. Karen, I'm gonna pass it on to you, and you know, we look forward, of course, to your presentation and our interaction together.
Well, it's really lovely to be here again with you, and I'm going to share my presentation, How Teens Tick. I will do my best to answer your questions. I just feel a little bit out of touch. I was just telling Julian that my youngest is now like 28, so it's been quite a while since I parented teenagers, and I know things have changed a lot in the last few years. So I will do my best, but I will also depend on some of you who are experts by experience, who are doing it right now, to teach me as well. So let's explore how teens tick. Well, the first thing I think is that being a teen is tough. And I kind of wonder, what are some of the challenges that teenagers face in today's culture? And every day I'm hearing it now. I mean, it's not just today's culture, is it? It's the pandemic. It's doing school online, being on Zooms all day long, trying to do exams and not really knowing how they're going to get marked, and will you be able to go to the college and university you want to? And they're growing up in a world that would normally be quite uncertain for teenagers, but now it's like uncertain for everybody. And I think that's really tricky. And I wonder, what is easier about being a teenager today than when you were a teenager? Is anything easier? and what is harder. I think the easier thing is you can communicate more easily on your mobile phone, but there is so much that's harder. And so we need to be really compassionate, I think, to being a teenager, because I'm really glad that I'm not a teenager anymore. So teenagers are obviously growing and changing, and there's lots of signs that we can see, but the brain is working really hard behind the scenes, and it's rewiring the brain, the system for adulthood. And we didn't know much about this before, but now we know that the brain is being rewired. And these changes are happening from before or around the age of 11 till about the mid-20s for females and even the late 20s for males. So, you know, you think you end up being a teenager when you get to 20, but actually you probably still have a few years to go. You might be only halfway through, which is a bit disconcerting. I'm glad I didn't know that. So now we know that the brain is doing this major rewiring thing, which is absolutely incredible. But it does mean that there are some little blips along the way that make life a bit more challenging for teenagers. So if you want to understand the teenage brain, this just about sums it up, really. This is a really good scan of a teenage brain, which points out all the interesting parts there. So there's all sorts of interesting things like addiction to Facebook. That's probably something else now. Awkwardness, the like or hate lobe, the body language lobe, you know, all these different things, and a major love lobe and a huge rebellion center. So this is one look at the average teenage brain. And I wonder if we could look at most teenage brains in this sort of way, what we'd find in the jigsaw puzzle inside. It's really complicated, but the good news is that teenage brains are absolutely amazing. Actually, the brain is at its peak performance for learning, for creativity, for imagination, for its capacity to do many things. But also the changes that take place in the brain during this time can influence everything else, and their behavior, their emotions, all sorts of things. And brain development is only one aspect influencing their behavior. So on top of the brain, there's the genetics, the environment, education, social experiences, relationships, peer pressure, all sorts of challenges that are going into the mix of what teenagers have to deal with and kind of sift through and make sense of, and hopefully choose the right kind of way to respond. And that's really tricky, having all that lot going on. And every teenager develops differently. Every brain works differently, and the brain is rearranging and reorganizing itself. So what it does, it says, you know, that bit, that wasn't quite so useful, so we'll bypass that bit and we'll join these two wires together here because that looks more efficient. And that's the kind of thing that's happening in the brain as it rewires and reshapes to be more efficient and stronger to deal with the challenges of adulthood. So unwanted and weaker connections kind of get pruned or bypassed or wired around. And you know, if you've ever had an old house and it needs to be rewired, there's going to be times when your cooker won't work, or you won't be able to get hot water in the system, or something else is not going to happen quite right, or you'll click one switch and expect the light to come on and something else will come on. And that's kind of what it's like living inside a teenage brain, that the switches and the wires are not always where you think they ought to be. And so that can make it a bit more challenging to deal with life. One of the construction sites in the brain is the amygdala, and this changes rapidly during the teenage years. It's the area of the brain that's most responsible for sensations, emotions, and arousal. And it can be very sensitive to stimulation in adolescence, which is why they often become arousal seekers. And it may explain why teenagers are more prone to risky and spontaneous behavior. They want the next high, the next buzz. They want to try this new risk, this new challenge. They want to prove themselves. And that's all part of being a teenager. But there's a challenge because this risk site in the brain is not always linked up as efficiently as it is when we're adults with the prefrontal cortex, which tells you, you know what, that's a really stupid thing to do. So because the risk area is highly kind of sensitive, it's highly pulsing, it's wanting all sorts of stimulation, and the prefrontal cortex, which can actually screen and filter and say that's not very clever, that's a bit stupid, don't do that, or wait, that bit might not be joined up. And so that's when they might do some things that we think are a little bit unhelpful, risky, dangerous, because they just can't think things through the way that we can and see the whole process. So the prefrontal cortex is responsible for intellectual activity, self-awareness, planning, problem solving, decision-making, and appropriate social interaction. So you can imagine that if this part of the brain isn't wired into the rest at all of its points, there's going to be some gaps in awareness, in decision-making, in thinking things through appropriately. And that's one of the big challenges that we now know. So some studies suggest that this area of the brain doesn't develop as fast as the amygdala, which is why teenagers may behave irrationally at times, and they don't always think ahead, plan, and assess the consequences. So when my youngest was probably about 14 or 15, summer holidays just began. Bernie and I were going away for some church meetings for a couple of days. My parents were coming the next day to look after the kids. And there was some activity outside the back of our house. There was a school behind our house. And Joel noticed some smoke coming from the school, and the school was closed. But he saw the smoke, and then he heard the fire engines. And he wanted to see what was going on. So he climbed up onto our flat garage roof to get a better look at the fire and the firemen putting it out. And it was a bit of fun for a while. And then when it was time to come off, we said, we'll get you a ladder so you can come down. He climbed up there on top of the picnic table or something. We'll get you a ladder so you can get down safely. And he said, no, Mum. He said, because I'm going to jump across the patio, which dipped down, and then there was a raised garden grass on the other side of that. And it wasn't a big gap between the two. He says, look, I'm going to jump over the patio and I'll land on the grass. So, and then he said, it's okay, I've done it before with my friends, which also rang a few alarm bells. What does he do with his friends when I'm not around? And we said, we don't think that's a good idea. And he said, I can do it. Anyway, he jumped, he landed, and he said, oh, that wasn't a good idea. My foot really hurts now. See, when he jumped before, the grass was very wet and it was quite muddy and it was in the spring. So when he landed, there was a nice soft dip in the grass when he landed on the mud, but it hadn't rained for about 6 weeks and the grass was now like concrete. He jumped onto that and he broke his leg. Beginning of the summer holidays, total leg cast. No swimming, no surfing, no fun for the entire summer holidays. This is because even though we tried to help him think rationally, it's really not a great idea to jump that far off the garage roof. No, I can do it, not thinking through the consequences. And so he didn't have much of a fun summer after that. But adults can help. And this is what we really need to know, that the more we understand what's going on in the teenagers, the more we can be helpful. We need to be understanding and supportive rather than frustrated and critical. They really, really need a lot of understanding, support, care, love, helping them through this time. They need us a lot during this time, more than they let us know. And they really want us to be there, but they're not always quite sure how to ask us to be there. And we need to give them some space to develop in their God-created way. Part of being a teenager is they need to separate away from their family, become their own identity, learn how to live independently and make their own choices. And that's a rocky road between being a cared for child with everything done for you into this place where, as a teenager, you can drive a car, go off to university, even get married, become a parent even while a teenager. And that's a lot to ask for a teenager to adapt to in a really short space of time. So the stronger the connections a teenager has, the stronger the caring, supportive relationships, family, school, community, mentors, and people at church, role models, grandparents, aunties, uncles, the more strong relationships they have around them, the more steady they can be held through this time, the more people care. If you can be significant in the life of the teenager, be a person who cares, who listens and supports, you can be really helpful to them. And that's what we're called to do in community. So teenagers are trainee adults. They're just learning. And when we're learning, we are going to make some mistakes, always. And that's how they learn through the hard way often to become adults. And it's a tough journey, particularly when you're surrounded by a lot of other teenagers trying to make the same journey, and all the pressures and social media and likes and dislikes and all the things they have to deal with that we never had to deal with when we were teenagers. And so they can get a low self-esteem, sense of hopelessness, a disconnect from parents and peer pressure. They lose sight of their goals. There are challenges all around them. And these are some of the factors that can increase their risk of taking risky behavior. Extrovert personalities may be also more likely to seek and take risks. It's part of how they're wired as well. And risky behavior can include all sorts of things, from leaving homework to the last minute, not studying for exams and tests, that's still risky. Self-harm, experimenting with drugs, sex, alcohol, smoking, and some dangerous activities. I once caught one of my children, my daughter was helping one of her brothers do something on his arm one day in the kitchen, and I happened to come in when they weren't expecting me. And I said, "What's going on here?" And my daughter was trying to treat a burn on my son's arm. And I said, "What on earth happened there?" And he said, "Well, Mum, my friends are doing this thing with aerosols, and like they spray an aerosol and they get a cigarette lighter and they try and make it flame throw. And one kid did this and the flame threw and it like burnt all the way at my arm." This is this dangerous activity thing, these challenges. They find these, what they think, cool things to do. And again, they don't see the consequences, and often people get hurt. So we need to help teens manage their risky behaviors. They're more likely to take risks, and they're less likely to be able to think through what are the consequences. So we really have to help them stop and think. And that means that we have to slow down with them, help them to work through the options, come up with safety plans if things go wrong, and be there to catch them when they make mistakes. So a teenager might say, "I really want to go to this party," obviously not now in lockdown, but they really want to go to a party, and you're a bit worried, like, what happens when you get 20 plus teens in a house together without adults around? You think, that's not going to go too well. Something is going to go wrong. So you can say something like, "I know you really want to go to that party. I really want you to be able to have fun with your friends. That's really important to me too. Let's just think about this party. I want you to be safe because I love you. Let's think what might be the risks here and how you will deal with them. So what will you do if there is, alcohol, if there is this problem, if there is this, if you don't feel safe, what will you do?" And help them to think it through, because they're not likely to be able to do that on their own. And we would even make a roadmap with them. So these are some of the things that might go wrong. And then what could you do in those different situations to minimize the risk, take care of your friends, take care of yourself, contact us when you need to. We will come and get you whenever you don't feel safe or you want out of there. And so that is one way to help them think really carefully about what some of the risks might be. But we need to be there to catch them when they make mistakes. They will make mistakes. And we need to be people who will care for them, love them, and accept them, even when they feel no one else does. We need to be there and to not make fun of them, to not tell them off, to not say, "I told you so, you're a stupid person," but just be there and say, "I'm sorry this happened. I love you anyway. Let's see what we can do to patch this up." So we need to understand that risk-taking is essential for learning. Talk about the risks, give them increasing independence. And if they don't manage a risk well, if we plan for the risk and talk it through, and we say, "These are the boundaries that we have around you coming and going," and if they break a boundary, we say, "Okay, you're not ready for that yet. We'll make the boundaries smaller and closer and then we'll slowly increase your independence again so that we know you can manage that space." And so it's about having those flexible boundaries that you can tighten up again if you realize there's still some learning that needs to be done so they can manage their risks. And so we do need to let them go and try some of these things out and let them go gracefully. If we hold them too tightly, we can also make things worse. But it's being there to help them think their risks through. And as I said, it's the warm, open, supportive, trusting relationships that can steady them through this time and give them good role models, the people they want to be. Positive hobbies as well can all protect the teen, the faith that they have in the church, the values that we build into their lives when they're younger can all help to protect them. So we also need to educate and empower them about drugs, alcohol, smoking, etc., and help them to learn the facts about these things from reliable sources. It's often really good to do that in the youth group at church, to explore some of these things, see why they're dangerous to us, develop strong values, learn what to do if you're exposed to a risk with one of these things, or someone invites you to try something that you don't want to try. How do you walk away without being teased and bullied or put down? How do you deal with relationships that you realize are not safe? How do you get out of those dangerous situations? So help them talk to people who've made mistakes as teenagers and learn from their stories. Role play situations so they have some skills and some things to say and experience. So when they go into a situation, they know some things to say and to do. And what I really love is that some organizations are training young people with values to become peer influencers. So they go with their friends, but when the friends want to do something risky, like drink too much alcohol or try smoking or drugs or something else that is unsafe, these young people know how to positively influence the group and turn them away from the dangerous behavior in a fun way that means that nobody loses face and people are more likely to stay safe. And that's what we need to be doing with them. Okay, maybe we'll take a break here and say, what did someone do for you? Was there someone in your life as a teenager who was really significant? They were that significant person for you that helped you to stay grounded or picked you up when you made a mess or loved you anyway. Did you ever have someone like that in your life? Has anyone got a story they would like to share?
Thank you for that. I'm listening and reflecting a lot. Actually, I like the bit. If I can just, I'm avoiding the question. You see, I like the bit about the teens being the trainee adults, right?
Yeah,
that was
just practicing.
That was, but I think we have a lot of comments on. Kaya will take us, I guess, through the comments. But of course, Kaya, you can share about your teenage years as well. You can share stories. Go ahead.
Take a few now before we go on. Yeah, I'd like to hear some comments.
Yeah.
I think to answer Karen's question, although my mum was strict, my dad was opposite of strict, but my mum was strict. I knew that even if I messed up, I knew why my mum was being so strict and why she put certain restrictions on me. And I knew that with my dad, he never had to tell me off or tell me about what I did wrong. I just could tell by the way he was that he was I kind of could feel that he feels for me. He feels sorry that I made the mistake. So it was interesting. I got both the experiences with my parents, but in both cases I knew, that they still love me. So we do have several answers and actually some questions coming in as well. To answer the question about if you would be a teenager, how would you parent? Ian has put, my parents did a great job. I can't think of a better way they did. And Jenna says, my mom always instilled in me or us that no matter what I did or would do, that she was always there for me and that we could tell her anything. And I believe that's why we are all still so close to her. She had 6 teenagers to deal with, so she deserves a medal.
That's really good, actually, that idea of letting them know that you always love them no matter what, and you'll always be there to help them. I think that's an enormous message to give our young people. And as parents, we need to be able to say that and be ready for that, whatever that looks like with our teenagers, because I think it gives them an incredible sort of safety net when they know that they never have to doubt our love and they can always talk to us. So that's great.
Mm. And Lena has commented, our job is to help them come out of teenage alive. You know, teenagers, you know, they do struggle a lot, and if there are not parents there to support them, you know, there have been those cases where they don't come alive out of that teenage time. So I guess that is quite an important one as well.
Yes, yes.
Other comments, this generation of teens looks a lot less interesting of things to do. I would say more lazy. How to motivate 21st century teens is her question.
Well, that's a challenge, yes. Find out what they're passionate about and encourage them to be passionate about something. I think sometimes talking about different issues, getting them to be passionate about the environment or helping refugees or a project around the world, sometimes that can inspire them out of themselves and just realize that other people are struggling much more than they are. So they often can fight for social injustice, and that's one of their passions.
Mm. Mm. And Gentian posed a question of how to help them to be free from computer addiction. Another tricky one.
Right, yes. I mean, that's like a whole other seminar. And I think that's even more of a challenge now with lots of, many children having to go on Zoom for school and things like that. There's a good book, Care for the Family, a Christian organization, does some materials called Left to Their Own Devices. And they do a series which you can access free through their website, Care for the Family, Left to Their Own Devices by Catherine Hill. And you can always also buy the book. And she's actually someone I've worked with, and I know her, and she's amazing. So it's a very balanced look at how to help them manage their devices. We need to manage ours, is such a good example, and have some good boundaries in the home too. So those are really good comments and questions. Should we go on and then pick up some of them at the end as well?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for interacting there. It's really important to know their friends, I think, and make your home the place where they can come and be and hang out together, because at least then you know what's going on. And to be hospitable to them, because you can be a safe person for some of these other teens who can't even talk to their parents, or whose parents don't mind what they do and don't care whether they stay out all night. And that is actually quite troubling for those teenagers. They begin to doubt whether their parents really care when parents don't set them very clear boundaries. But you can show something different by having them come to your home, and get their friends' mobile numbers. So if you're ever concerned about your child, you can contact their friends and say, do you know where they are? Or just check in with them or see what's going on. So it's quite good if they will let you, the teens will let you have their friends' mobile numbers so you can stay in touch and build relationships with them. The more you know about those kids, then the wiser you can give support through their friendships. And if your child comes with questions about things and you know the people involved, it's much easier for you to answer wisely. So teens, as we know, are completely full of hormones. All the sex hormones are released into their body. But they also have feelings of stress, anxiety, and fear, which can flood their brain with the hormone cortisol. And this is so overwhelming. It makes it really hard for them to think clearly. And the stress hormone makes them feel like more aggressive. They're more likely to shout and bang things and to feel insecure or to run away and slam the door. And so we need to be aware of how can we lower the stress in their life, lower their anxiety, lower their fear. If there's anything we can do to help them manage these areas of their life, we help their brain to bounce back from all the cortisol and stress and recover and experience the positive hormones that are in their body. So it's really important that we don't add to their stress, anxiety, and fear by the way we talk to them or about them or deal with them, because if we can do things to lower this, we can help them deal with all of these emotions that come from the world around them too. So also very high levels of stress hormones can affect the development of the brain, especially when it's in a rapid development phase. So This is why it's important to not overstress the brain when it's developing, because it can create patterns in there and things that can be more difficult to deal with later. So it's important to help the teens also learn how to manage their stress and their anxiety, learn some things that help them to feel calm, good hobbies and loving relationships, calm environment, not so much on their phones, physical exercise, good food, plenty of sleep. All these things will help them to be in the best place for their brain to develop well. So, because of all these hormones, teenagers can be illogical, irrational, inconsistent, and unpredictable. And we need to accept that. And quite often parents will say, oh, you know, they're really moody, they're really grumpy. And actually, it's often because there's so much going on inside that they really don't feel they have any kind of control over. And they're dealing with so many different things that we're not. And it's, when they're dealing with mood swings, it's good if we can kind of be the calm place by showing empathy, love, acceptance, and understanding. They really need to know we love them. We care about their feelings. We will always be there for them. We will support them when they're having a difficult time. You know, we've been up all through the night with teenagers who are finishing off their projects for exams and school, etc. And so by giving them that support, that empathy, that love, that acceptance, that calm space, we can help them to feel steady. And we can be this safe place in their crazy world and find fun and soothing things to do together, things that they enjoy, get into their world and learn from them about some new things that are not screen related, and help them to rebalance. Teenagers release sleep hormone 2 hours after children and adults, which is why they stay up late and why they're so sleepy in the morning. Now we know why they do this. They're not just being lazy. It's the way that their hormones are wired. And this doesn't really make sense. There doesn't seem to be any developmental reason why this happens. Maybe we should ship all the teenagers like two time zones away so they can just get up at the normal time in the next time zone. But I guess they'll soon catch up and be delayed there as well. But they actually need a lot of sleep to help them learn well and to help them grow well and to reduce their stress. So when they have to get up to school, it's quite good at the weekends on days where they can, like Sunday or whatever, to let them really lie in. If they lie into lunchtime, don't think they're being lazy. They need to catch up with that sleep for their well-being. So make sure they try and get some, and try and manage their sleep by not having devices at the bed. Make, you know, everyone put their devices away and to put their devices to bed in some homes, and they kind of lock them away in a special place where they're charging, and everyone's goes there for the night. So they're not using screens in the night or phones. Understand their sleep pattern. By understanding this is how they're wired, we can be less nagging about, oh, you should be going to bed now, or you should be getting up now. We understand how it is. In fact, some really good schools now are adjusting their school day hours to be more beneficial for teenagers, because otherwise they're half asleep for half the morning and you can't do much with them. And they're moving the exams to later in the day as well, because they will do better then. So some schools are adapting once they understood this information to help get the best out of them. So parents are really important. And even when they trash us or behave rudely towards us, they really love us. They really want us there. And times when they seem to be disrespectful or inconsiderate, they're often confused, bewildered, hurting, frightened, struggling with something inside. So the happier and more loved a child is inside, then the happier and more loving is their behavior. So if they're behaving in a way that is challenging, it's often because inside they're dealing with so much conflict and confusion and bewilderment and stress and pressure. And you're the safety valve. They can let out with you. And so often they'll be perfect angels at school, and they'll just come home and let everything go when they get home. But they need their parents as much as when they were a toddler. And they really need us to be warm, supportive, involved, calm, and interested, and stay connected with them. That's the most important thing we can do, is to love them and to stay connected with them. As far as we know, Paul didn't have kids, but the first thing he says about love is that love is patient. And I think that's amazing. I mean, I'm a family therapist, and if I was asked to describe love, I would put kindness at the top. But I've stopped to think about why he put patience first. And it's because we have to be patient. We have to slow down ourselves first so that we're in a space to listen to what they need. We're in a space to be there for them. We're not rushing around in our own world, rushing them. We need to be patiently listening, learning, caring for them. And then we can be more kind when we've let the patience change our heart first. And this is what was mentioned in the chat just now. Parents need to let teens know they will always love them, no matter what they do, say, or how they look. That love will never stop. Let them know you'll always be there for them, whatever their life choices, whatever their mistakes. That is how we show them God's love. Love them anyway, always, because that's what God does for us. And when we are there for them, that is such a huge gift. They know they have our rock solid love. And the more we have loved them and met their needs when they're little, the more we have listened to them when they're little, the more they will know they are loved as they grow older, and the more they will be able to speak to us and listen to us when they reach teenage years. So we need to be present and connected with our teenagers, not so busy in our own worlds that we're not aware of what's going on in theirs, to connect with them. And a really great way to connect with them is having meals together. And the research shows that when families have, I think, at least 3 meals together in a week, it has a tremendously powerful effect on the children's lives. We were so fortunate that when our teenagers were at home, we were in a place where we ate together every single day, pretty much every single meal. And that was so valuable. When they look back now at the times, they loved the times we sat around the dinner table, we talked through the day, what went well, what was sad, what their news was, what was the funniest thing, what help did they need, what were some of their struggles. And we could talk about it all together at the table and talk about their news and values and character strengths and important things like the environment and other issues. And that really shapes the life of the teenager. Also, if you want to have your teens to learn about different topics and you're not quite sure how to, there is a very good website called Axis, axis.org, and you can purchase and download conversation guides to talk to your teenagers about all sorts of different topics. And they're excellent, they're well researched, they tell you what to say and how to answer and how to explore things together. So, but those conversations are what shape them, what inspire them, what stay with them. And I know that the conversations we had stayed with our kids right up until the current day. They're still shaping them. Now, these are relational needs. The things that are under love, they're the things that we all need to feel connected and cared for by others. And so when we had a sad day, we need comfort. When we really messed up and we feel like the whole world hates us, we need acceptance. We need affection and kindness, appreciation when we do something well, one-to-one attention, respect, encouragement, to feel safe, to feel valued. I'm so glad you're my teenager. I love you. I'm so proud of you. And to feel supported. These are all really important ways that we connect. On the other side are what creates aloneness. Neglect, rejection, abuse, criticism, being ignored, shame, discouragement, fear, being put down, being abandoned. They're all the things that add hurt to our teen. They're all the things that they experience from their peers and in an unsafe world. And they're always comparing themselves with each other on social media, feeling that they're not as good as, not as beautiful as, not as strong as, and their self-esteem is seriously eroded. So we need to do all the topping up we can by all those wonderful things on the love side. And we learned about this before our children were teenagers, and we tried to meet these needs as often as we could. often everyone, every day. And you might think that's quite hard, but it just takes a sentence here and there, support. Hey, how can I help you? What can I do for you this evening? Telling them that they're really special to you, giving them a bit of encouragement, speaking respectfully, spending one-to-one time, maybe at bedtime, having a chat when they really want to talk till after midnight because they're on a different time zone to us. So all the things that we can do, surprise them with kindness, buy them a gift that you know they really want and they're saving up for, surprise them with grace, do those things and they're amazing. And that's how we stay present and connected. And we're not going to get it right all the time. Parenting teens is tough. We're on a steep learning curve as well. And we need to be humble enough to apologize to teens if we mess up, if we cause them pain or hurt them or accidentally embarrass them. We need to be big enough to say, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry I hurt you. Please forgive me. Because when we can model that to them, then they can say those things to us. One thing we've learned recently is that when there is a conflict between an adult and a teen, then that relationship needs to be mended before bedtime. When that relationship is restored before bedtime, and it's best if the adult does this, don't expect the teen who's still learning to do this stuff. The adult needs to move in, mend the relationship, restore it as quickly as possible, because the teens don't know how to do this very well. And when we do that for them and we resolve it and reconnect before bedtime, it does not go on to cause them distress, and anxiety, even depression. It goes overnight. Then it starts to begin to trigger some kind of mental health issues if we're not careful. So the sooner we mend it, the better. The biblical wisdom of, don't let the sun go down on your wrath is really important for our brains. And I wouldn't be surprised if all of us need that to be resolved before bedtime, because maybe something about sleeping on it in our brain has an effect that is difficult to deal with. So when we are disconnected from our teens, it can lead to guilt and depression and aloneness. And look out for their body language. They may not be able to tell us they are down or sad or feeling guilty and shame, but look out for them and listen to them. Don't just ignore them if they've gone to their room. Check on them. Make sure they're okay. Notice how they look. Notice whether there are any signs of depression, and deal with it quickly, resolve it and make amends. We need to catch our kids doing something good as often as possible, even daily. Tell them something they've done well or right. This is so important. They're surrounded by things that they're not doing right, that they're not doing well, that they're not good enough. And we need to say, today I saw you do this. That was amazing. I'm reminded of Rob Parsons, who's done a lot of work with Care for the Family in the UK. He's a Christian activist for families. And he once walked into his teenage son's bedroom, and it was diabolical. He said he needed that yellow and black hazard tape needed to be taped all over the door. I mean, it was just complete microbiotic nightmare. And he looked around the room and he thought, I need to say something positive to my son. What can I say? And he looked around and he said, hey son, you got a really tidy ceiling today. Because that was the one thing in the whole room that was tidy was the ceiling. So he wanted to say something positive. But we need to tell them each day, that was kind, that was courageous, that was creative, that was amazing, that was great teamwork. We need to understand what the character strengths are. And if you're not sure, go to the website, Let It Ripple, like water, letitripple.org. And it describes their 24 main character strengths and gives you loads of resources for them. Just knowing what those character strengths are can make a huge difference, because then you know what to spot your teenager doing and tell them that was good. That was, you did something well for your character, then you made a good choice then, because that's what will encourage them and shape their characters. When we spot them doing those good things, that then defines them, not what people are saying around them that is negative, but they're hearing us say positive things, catching them doing something good. And that is so powerful to shape them and change their character. We also need to educate them about pornography. And this is a difficult topic, but this is very destructive in the world today. And young people are accessing porn younger and younger all the time. They say the average age of starting to see porn is around 11. So we need to educate our children about pornography and the risks. And there's a really good book for small children called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, which is a simple way to tell even small children about what pornography is and why it's important to avoid it and what to do. It gives them a safety plan. I think it's can do, like close the computer, tell an adult, and it just kind of gives them a routine to go through to make sure that they don't persist in looking. So there is a website in the UK called the nakedtruthproject.com, which is by Christians. Then there's an Adventist resource that's been made particularly because this is an issue for all people. The newfreedomtolove.org has some really, really good resources. It's an Adventist website full of training and resources to help families and all people who want to understand the issues and make good choices. Then there is a TED Talk, which is just 15 minutes, called The Great Porn Experiment, which explains the long-term effects and how destructive it can be. We don't yet know the effects of young people watching as much porn as they can do during the time that their brain is being formed and shaped. That is a whole new experiment in the world, and we have no idea where that will go. It's quite dangerous. So it's like these young people are on drugs that no one has ever been on before, and we won't know the long-term consequences of them being on this porn drug until much later. So we need to be really aware. And as a family therapist, I've seen many relationships destroyed by pornography and many really distorted pictures of what sexuality is through being porn. I heard of a teenage girl who said, I've seen porn on the computer, and if that's what sex is, I'm going to choose to be with a woman and not with a man. And things like this. I mean, it's really appalling how these things are distorting our children's minds and actually making violence in relationships a norm and creating unreal expectations and ideas about what sex is. It's just really dangerous. So we need to be very, very aware of the dangers of this and educate young people in the process. There's a really good book called Applying the Handbrake. It's a teenage boy's honest account about God and porn, and it's a really good one, and it can also apply to girls as well. So it's helpful for both of them. Okay, we often wonder why teens don't talk, why they grunt, how they can talk for hours and hours on their phone to their best friend, and then when they come off the phone and you want to have a conversation, they can't even pronounce a word. And it's just an odd thing that teenagers do, and we don't always understand. Maybe they just used up all their words for the day with their mates and there aren't any left. So sometimes they will turn away, go silent, or show indifference, or they go moody. And quite often when they're going quiet or moody, doesn't mean they don't want to talk to you. Quite often they don't know where to start. They don't know what to say. They don't know even what they're feeling, how to talk to you about what's going on in their head. And that can be really difficult for them. They're facing often very complex situations, and they have like a foot in both worlds, the one in school and with their peers, and the one at home, and that's maybe also involves church. And it's very hard for them to bring those worlds together. And we need really good mentors for teens who can help them navigate both of those worlds, and to have a really good, strong faith, biblical understanding that is relevant to them, makes sense to them, people who can mentor them in their life and help them to make sense of all the things that they are concerned about and thinking about. So before teens talk, they need to feel super safe with us first. And the more we have listened to them when they are younger, the more likely they will talk to us when they are older. But they need to know that we're not going to jump in there and yell at them for telling us what they're thinking and what they're struggling with, or even their questions about God. they need to know they can talk. I saw someone this week and they said, one of the best things that you can give a teenager is an hour a week to talk about anything they want to without your interruption. That you can just hear what's going on in their head. You're not going to judge or criticize or jump on them or argue with them. You just listen and hear and gain the wisdom. Solomon said that it's foolish to answer without listening, and we need to really listen to our young people, to think about their questions and have seriously good answers for them, because they can go on the internet and research things. So we need to know that our answers are sound, and we need to listen to them and be big enough to say, you know what, I don't know, but I just care. Let's find a way to deal with this together. Let's explore together. But they need that safe place. When we ask them lots of questions about what's going on and what they think and what do they believe about this, they can feel interrogated and they can feel that really confusing and unsafe, because they often can't think as fast as we can ask questions, and they just feel bombarded. So it's best to just chill with them, play games with them, drive them places, take them to their favorite cafe when we can go out there again, sit and chat late at night, go to the places where they feel comfortable to talk, and let them talk and listen and not judge. We need to be really aware about our faces when we're listening to our teenagers. So adults read the emotions in people's face in the rational and thinking part of their brain. So we see someone's face and maybe a flicker of something goes across their face, and we think about that in the rational part, and we make sense of it and go, oh, they're having a bad day, and they were distracted for a moment or something else. But teens read people's faces in the amygdala of the brain, and they can tell this on a brain scan. When they look at faces, they analyze them through the amygdala, which focuses on sensing and responding to danger. So when we look concerned, alarmed, angry in response to what they're saying to us, they don't think about that rationally. They think about, am I in a safe place? Do I need to run? Or do I need to fight? So, because that's what the amygdala tells them, fight or flight. So they're hyper alert to threat in our faces for disagreement or disapproval. And they do that like in their peers' faces as well. They're looking out. Do you approve of me? Do you disagree with me? Am I safe in this relationship? Am I not? So that is what they have learned, to kind of stay safe in social contexts. So we need to be aware that our faces are warm, inviting, gentle eye contact, maybe not too much, but showing that we full on care for them, show our love and our smile and our delight in them in our face. Young children need to see their parents light up when they see them. And even, couples, their relationship is better when they meet or see each other or greet each other, their faces light up. And our teens need to see our faces light up when we see them, because that tells them they are safe, they are loved, they are precious. So be really aware of how your face looks to your teenager, because if they perceive threat, they can easily run away and slam the door. We need to listen to them really well, respond to the feelings fueling their words, rather than reacting to their words and their tone of voice, because sometimes they will speak angrily, they will speak like difficult words, maybe aggressively, words we don't like, but forget that, let that go over your head and listen to the feelings underneath. What's going on underneath? Are they angry? Are they sad? Are they frustrated? It's often better to say you sound frustrated than you sound angry. It's kind of easier for them to deal with. So try and understand what they're feeling, listen for their unspoken relational needs, because underneath their big words and their anger, they're often saying, I need some comfort, I need some encouragement, I need to feel safe, I need to feel loved. And so when we can listen to those needs and respond to them and ask how we can help, then we can really listen to them and not just listen to those big words, but listen to the heart underneath. So ensure privacy when you're talking, don't shame them, listen to them first and let them speak slowly. Sum up what they say. So you're just saying that, can I just check I understood that properly? so that they know that you are really, really listening. And then let them know that their feelings touched you in some way. I'm so sorry that you are feeling. That must be so frustrating, so discouraging, so sad. Then they know we get them, we understand them. And underneath, the teen that is really asking, do you love me? Do you care about me? Can you understand what I have to go through in this world now? Can you understand my feelings? Are you there to help me when I'm struggling? Will you always be there for me? We need the answers to these questions every single day in the way that we relate to them, and then they can feel more safe. So when you do need to speak about something, choose a good time for both of you. Stay calm, speak quietly, make your face light up, start up warmly. That will release the stress in their brain and help them to feel connected to you and warmly loved. And that will be easier then for them to listen to you. Let them know you love them. Say something you appreciate about them. And if you have a complaint about them, make it into a polite request. In this situation, when this happens, I feel, and it would really help me if you would do this, and then I can help you by doing this. What ideas do you have? You need to put our complaints into these ways, simply and clearly, and help them to understand how to put their complaints to us in similar words, because then we have a clear request for help and why it's important. So we need to show respect for our teens. Quite often we can disrespect our teens by not listening to their ideas. And if we have different opinions, we need to stay calm and say why we don't agree, but don't get into major arguments. We've got our team to help us make good rules in the house. They have to set the house rules, and they set the concept rules. They gave good concept.
It's Karen, I think I had my connection problems. Please go ahead again. Yeah, it's all good. Just unmute yourself.
Okay, many boundaries, many conflicts happen because teams want to push the boundaries, but boundaries help them to feel safe and loved. So make sure they understand the boundaries, why they're there, make it easy for them to comply. Any rule should be for the benefit of the teen and not for the parents' convenience. So they need to know that it's for their sake, for their well-being. And we need to enforce those rules warmly, help them understand the importance of complying, avoid harsh punishment, even taking away devices, actually, it can lead to much greater conflict. So manage the devices, maybe limit it, say, okay, put this down for an hour, but don't take it away from them, because that can actually be arouse a lot of conflict and stress. So find other ways if you can. One good phrase is, I love you too much to let you do that. And I really like that phrase. Wish I'd had that when my kids were teenagers. So we need to help them be resilient, to nurture, affirm, and encourage the teens' positive character strengths, help them to persist with difficult things, support them so that when things do happen that are really hard, they'll be able to bounce back, and to pray for them daily, because it's tough being a teen. I mean, I'm so glad that I'm not a teen right now, and they really need all the support we can get, particularly now, to help them get through this really challenging time. So there's loads that we could say about teenagers, masses and masses. So if you've got conflict with your teens, go to the scottishconflictresolution.org.uk. I used to work with them. They're run by the Cyrenians. They have lots of tips for conflicts and teens, and they have lots of free courses for parents and teens too. If they have troubling behaviors, then there is a really good website. Again, I worked on this website when I was in Scotland, handsonscotland.co.uk. And there is a lot of help there with all sorts of troubling behaviors and just simple bullet points, well-researched, how to help them with different things. It's great for all ages of kids. I really love Dan Siegel. He has a brilliant YouTube video. It's about 2 hours long. There's several with the same title, because clearly people videoed him doing this several times. But it's called The Power and Purpose of the Teenage Brain, and look out for that. And Brainstorm is Dan Siegel's book for teenagers about what's happening in their brain so they can understand it too. So there's things to help us. It's a challenging time to negotiate. The thing to hang on to is that pretty much all teens come out the other side fairly nice, well-balanced human beings who go on to have babies of their own and one day will also parent teenagers. And it's that point when they are parenting teenagers that they will turn around and say, wow, now I know what you went through with me. You did a good job. So hang in there. I was reading a quote from Ellen White this week, and she said, speak to your children the way you want them to speak to their children when they're parents. And I thought, that's a good piece of wisdom. Speak to your children the way you want them to speak to your grandchildren, basically. So that's a lightning tour of working with teenagers, understanding them, helping them. There is so much more I could say. There is so much more that's being learnt all the time, but hopefully this is a starting point, and hopefully something will come out of this that might help you where you are.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. I was waiting for Kaya to take over now. She respects me as the elderly person in the team of Monday Live. Thank you, Kaya. You're very kind. But this, wow, so much valuable information, and not just information, but the insights. So I've been blessed already, and I'm already thinking now how to implement things already with my 5-year-old. Anyway,
start with their 5, and then you'll be well practiced by the time they're teenagers.
We do have a few comments that have come in, and I'll just read a few comments, and then we have also one question that I'm hoping you can try and answer, Karen.
I'll have a go.
So Matthew says, I would like to be as open to my children as my parents were to me. I felt that I could go to them with everything that allowed me to explore the world, change the church, and find my way in the world. And I felt that I have their support. My mom was visiting some churches with me as I was looking for the one for me, while she was still a very devoted Catholic.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And Beatrice comments, for teenagers, it's important to have parents who care for their own mental health. I remember when my mother suffered from depression, I felt very alone as a teen and did not know how to help and support her.
Yes, that's really, really important. I think we need to definitely take care of ourselves, put our own oxygen mask on as well before we deal with our teenagers, and maybe reevaluate our life and think, is there something I need to put down for a while my teenagers are growing up so I can have the energy I need to parent them well?
And we have questions. People are saying thank you for the nice presentation, or the information that you've given and the resources, which will be very useful. So Alla is asking how to teach teens self-control.
Well, that's a challenging one. I think it starts with us as adults. We need to show that we are self-controlled, and they learn it from us a lot. I think also a lot of the things that we want to do when they're teenagers, we need to start doing when they're 4 or 5, 3, 4, 5. The sooner we start developing the kind of character we want to see in our child when they're teenagers, the better, because it's easier to instill habits when they're younger. So self-control is a difficult one, and I think they have to have a motivation for being self-controlled. They need to understand if there's no motivation to do it, then it's hard for them to learn. And I guess it's in what context do you want self-control? So is it about, eating? Is it about behavior and respect? And what kind of self-control is it? I think a lot of the time it's modeled. If it's about their behavior and the way they communicate, and they can be like a bit angry and aggressive or whatever, come across in frustrating ways, and you want them to speak calmer, then we need to speak calmer to them, to listen to them, to help them feel calmer when they start talking to us, and to encourage calmness. And so by listening to them, understanding them, reflecting back what they're saying to us, they actually will calm down. When we say, it sounds like you're really frustrated, they'll go, yes. And they will instantly be, a little calmer than they were before. So it kind of depends on the context for self-control. Let It Ripple has many different ideas for all the different character strengths. It has research, it has videos, it has tips, and self-control is on there as well. So if you're looking for a lot richer understanding of how to help children be self-controlled, have a look at some of the material on the different characteristics of Let It Ripple.
And we have one more question, another big one. Christiana asks, what do you say when your teen decides that church no longer makes sense?
That's a big one. And I think that's something that we need to tackle all together. We need to really listen to our young people, because quite a lot of church does not make sense to an adolescent and a teenager. We do things the way we've done them for many years, and sometimes they're not really relevant to the context and the life that we're experiencing today. And I think what we actually need is communities willing to come together and say, what kind of church do we need to be for now? Because all through the Bible, the church communities change to adapt to the context. And we live in a rapidly changing context. So I think there needs to be ongoing conversations that make church relevant, find out what is relevant to the young people, and find out the best information we can and the best resources, the best people to speak, to really help make church relevant to young people. I think this is a big challenge for many young people and their families, because we're doing church in a way that is hundreds of years old. And so we need to stop as a community and think, what we have is great. The core principles are amazing. They're there forever, but we need to rethink and readapt them to the context in which we find ourselves, so they make sense to the next generation always, and keep moving on. Julian, you'll know about the three box book. and I have to think that the church needs to do that, needs to understand what it needs to create to live into the future, what it needs to let go of from the past, and how to do today well, in the best possible way. And I think that kind of scenario is something that we need to grapple with more as a church, and have people that can mentor young people through these things, do things in the church that feel relevant to them, find what they're passionate about in the world, whether it's the environment or refugees or injustice, and help them to see that the church is behind that and they can be relevant. But it's a huge task for us all. We all need to be part of that.
Karen, if you allow me just a brief comment on this and on that question, because it made me reflect. And this weekend, actually, I've been invited by Area 1 down in the South England Conference, to be the speaker. And I'm actually going to tackle this, basically, how having every church to make every church a safe place, especially for our young people and, of course, teenagers. It starts with that age, so that they feel free, they feel safe from any kind of prejudice or sermonizing, and where they feel free to ask any questions. Absolutely. I've been blessed this past few weeks. We have started our Ringway Teen Lounge. We have fantastic teens and tweens. I learned a new term, teen and tween. With our from our Ringway and the network, from Ringway and Stockport churches and around the area. And I've learned so much from them, but basically my priority is to make them feel completely that this is a safe place. Ask any question. You will never be shown any sort of prejudice or any sort, just please, if the church is not the place, a safe place for our teens and our youth to ask the difficult questions, to express their doubts, issues they deal with, then, what is the point of, we have to basically make church relevant, we have to bring the church to them and not to impose it on them. So it's just something that I try to keep at the front of my mind, because, when I think of my teenage years, that's when when I got baptized, actually, it was the church that shaped me onto who I am today. Kind of like the church was that person. You asked this question in the beginning, and I would say actually it's the church. You know, at that time, the missionaries from the Trans-European Division, where you serve as our excellent ministries, family ministries director. But you know, it was those people that shaped us in my mid to late teens, you know, in that time. And but I felt a safe environment there. So you know, and you I'm so happy that you highlighted this as well for us as parents. But obviously, that's the purpose of the church as well, isn't it?
It is. And I think we need young people to stay with us and help us make this church relevant. We need their eyes. We need what they know, what they are passionate about to guide us. So we need to hold on to them because they need to know that we need their perspective to help us. There's also something called iCOR, which is a little I, a small I, and then capital COR, Intergenerational Church of Refuge. There's a whole big website and masses of materials, which is designed to help churches become relevant and safe for young people and children and all generations, and develop community, develop mission, think about justice issues. And it's really a great resource. So if you Google for that, you should find a website, probably icor.org. I'm not exactly sure of it offhand, but there's masses there to help churches become relevant places for young people. And that's promoted by Zlatko at the division as well. So you can find things on the Trans-European Division website and youth ministries, or just Google Intergenerational Church of Refuge. So there are people desperately looking for creative new ways to make church relevant. It must be relevant. It must be continually relevant. So let's help it to be so.
Thank you so much. Kaya, any other final comments or anything from you?
Not really. From our viewers, yeah, I just tried to put some of the resources out there as well, the websites, but I don't have all of them there. So, but it's been very useful. So,
which ones are you missing? Because I can tell you.
Probably a few. You had lots there, so I've only put a few up which I had, and I can put a few more, but not all of them.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's good.
Yes. So I'll try and put them up as well. And yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. And, you know, as I teach young children, like 2 to 3 year olds, I can still find so many things that actually are useful working with them as well. Because as you say, you need to already start developing those skills in them. Or when they're young, you can't just jump suddenly. Now you're teenager, now I'm gonna do it differently, you know. So and also realizing how important that stage of their life is as well, you know, knowing always, you know, as a teacher you influence their life a lot, and being teacher of early years, it's a massive responsibility to make sure the child actually, you're helping them, not making their life worse and that ruining their future basically.
So this is a book that I've written. It's for younger children. It's not going to help you with current teenagers, but it's 52 ways to parent happy children. And it's available from, like, I think it's Live Source Bookshop or the ABC, Samba Press. So it's simple bullet point ideas to help parents with younger children, which will hopefully create a much more secure foundation for children to build on into their teens. The more work we do from the word go, the better the teens will have a more stable base when they become teens. That's important.
Yeah, I was looking, Karen. You see, I knew I. Look at that. You know, I recommend this. I have, you know, I think I have your, you know, signature there. But it's an excellent book. You know, this is great stuff. Highly recommended. I knew I had it within reach.
Well, that's good to know.
Thank you so much for tonight. We want to thank thank you, Kaya. You know,
yeah, thank you.
It's great that we've been together, and we want to thank all of Ian and the team online and everybody that has joined us and have contributed with their questions and their comments. Of course, this will continue to be of a benefit. This video is recorded and it's accessible in our website. And you know, we're not going to pray tonight. We're not going to close in prayer, but we want to encourage everybody, you know, to reach out to us. Send a prayer request at our website, ringwaychurch.org.uk, or just on the chat. You know, any questions, you can approach us anytime. Just leave a note in our Facebook page or on YouTube. This is going to be on YouTube as well. It's going to be premiering in the next couple of days. So, you know, we want to hear from you. But we are so thankful tonight that we had this. We look forward to the next one, Karen, and we will get to that. We will advertise it ahead, you know, when it's. But you know, always a pleasure to have you as our special guest. Thank you.
Lovely to be here. So if you know a teenager, love them, connect with them, and pray for them, and be the special person in their life that makes a difference.
Amen. So we all say today a silent prayer for every teenager, especially those in our church we love very much, but also for the parents to do exactly what you just said.
Lovely.
Okay, then. Good night. I'm gonna finish with our church promo. Let's see if I can, and you can have a look now, Karen, at our Ringway Church brand new promo. Hopefully. I think I'll try. Yeah. All right. All right. I hope you liked it. What did you think?
Lovely.
All right. Okay. Thanks again. And good night, everybody online. And take care. Until next time.